Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to spend a little bit of time reviewing some of the stuff that we have learned about decimals so far. So let's just start by talking about what decimals are. So decimals, just like fractions, decimals are just parts of a number, okay? They're used exactly the same way, okay? So one important thing to look at is what a place value chart looks like for decimals, right? So over here, we have whole numbers on this side, right? This is what we've been working with right up until we started learning about decimals, right? So we have ones, tens, we know it would continue to get bigger, hundreds, thousands. And then on the right side of the decimal point, okay, we have parts of a number. These are not whole numbers. So we start by having tenths, and then we have hundredths. And of course, you know they continue on, but we'll learn that as we go on in our study of decimals. So let's talk about how we pronounce decimals. One way to pronounce them is to just use the word point. So for example, we can call this 1.4, but another way we can pronounce that is to say 1, okay, end, okay, the decimal translates to end, 4 tenths because the 4 is in the tenths spot, okay. Down here we have 1.05, which is pronounced 1 end 5 hundredths. So I said the number 5 and I realized the 5 was in the hundredths place. So it's 1 end 5 hundredths. Okay. Here we have 0.63. So we don't say a number end something because there's nothing in the whole number section. So we just pronounce that decimal. We're just going to read that number as if it were a whole number. So we just say 63. And then you see what place does it end in? And it ends in the hundredths place. So we pronounce it 63 hundredths, okay? And here we talk about decimals and place value, okay? Place value, of course, means the value of a digit based on its place in the number, okay? So if we take this decimal here, 46.23, 46 and 23 hundredths, and we want to talk about what the value of each of the digits are. So we start with the digit 3. The digit 3 is in the hundredths place. So that value is 3 hundredths. The digit 2 is in the tenths place, so the value of the 2 is 2 tenths. The digit 6 is just 6 ones, or 6. And the 4 is in the tens place, which is the same as 40. Okay? Another way we can ask a question about place value with decimals is to say, in the number 14.68, the 6 is in the what place? The 6 is in the tenths place, okay? In the tenths place. Let's talk about decimals and fractions, right? Because the two go together for sure, and we have to see how can we move between the two, okay? So for example, let's look here. We know that for every decimal that exists, there is an equivalent fraction. Here, this example, 0.4. You will make less work. It'll be easier for you if you pronounce it without saying the point. So how do you pronounce that without saying 0.4? You call it 4 tenths. Listen to what that sounds like, 4 tenths. We know what that looks like as a fraction. That's 4 over 10, 4 tenths, and that's it. Now, often they ask you to simplify it. So you simplify this fraction just like you normally would. So you divide both by the greatest common factor, which is 2, and that gives you 2 fifths. Okay. Here we have a whole number too. So think about it. Fractions that have whole numbers too are often called mixed numbers. They can also be improper fractions. We're going to write these as a mixed number. So this says 1 end 2 tenths. Think about what that would look like as a mixed number. We have 1 whole and 2 tenths. And 2 tenths can simplify to 1/5, so 1 end, 1/5. Okay, here we have 4 wholes, that part's easy, and 5, and the 5 is in the hundredths place, so 4 and 5 hundredths, which simplifies to 4 and 1/20th. Okay, and down here we have nothing in the whole numbers. We just have 25 hundredths. Okay, which we know would look like this as a fraction, 25 over 100, which simplifies, if you divide both the top and bottom by 25, you get 1/4. Okay? Now, just like for every decimal, there's an equivalent fraction, the same thing is true the other way. For every fraction, there's an equivalent decimal. So let's start here, okay? So 2 tenths. Well, listen to what that sounds like. 2/10, okay? We know that the tenths place is the first place to the right of the decimal point. So that's going to look like this, 0.2, 2/10. Here we have 600ths, which is going to look like this, 0.06, right? Because we have no whole numbers and the 6 is in the hundredths place. We're going to get back to this one. This one's tricky. Let's try here. 1 and 5/10 is going to be 1 whole and 5 in the tenths spot. Here we have 2 and 3/10. 2, that's going to go in the whole number spot, and 3/10. Okay? Now let's get to these tricky ones here. These are tricky because there is no fifths place, right? You needed to say tenths or hundredths. Okay? So the easiest thing to do is to make it an equivalent fraction that sounds like that, right? So I know that I can turn 4/5 into 8/10 because 5 times 2 is 10, and 4 times 2 is 8. So I've created an equivalent fraction. But my equivalent fraction now sounds the way I need it to turn it to a decimal. So 8/10 will look like this. You have no holes, and you have 8 in the tenths spot. 1 and 7/50. Well, the 1 part's easy. That's my whole. And now the 7/50. Let's think about it. 7/50. I can't turn that to tenths because I'd have to divide by 5 down here, and I can't divide the 7 by 5. It's not divisible. So I can turn it into hundredths. I go from 50 to 100 by timesing it by 2. So I do the same thing to the numerator, and it becomes 1400ths. So now the mixed number says 1 and 1400ths, which is going to translate as a decimal to 1.14. Okay. Here's just some more examples that we could work with decimals. Okay. Now these directions say to add these together and to write the answer as a decimal. Okay. So we have 80 wholes plus 7/10 plus 4 hundredths. So the 80 wholes are really easy. I'm just going to write that like that there. Now here I have 7/10. That's the place right next to the decimal point. And I have 4 in the hundredths. Okay. Here I have 60 plus 4 plus 3 hundredths. Okay. So the 60 plus 4 is going to be my whole numbers. That's just 64. I have nothing in the tenths place and a 3 in the hundredths place. So I'm going to have to use a placeholder here to push the 3 off to the hundredths place. Okay. Here I have 5 wholes plus 2/10 plus 3 hundredths. So that gives me 5 in the whole number spot, 2/10 and 3 hundredths, 5.23 or 5 and 23 hundredths. Here the directions say find the missing addend, and an addend is just a number that we're adding in, okay? So if I look at this number here, 62.54, 62 and 54 hundredths. Okay, that's the same as 60, that's what I got that from, plus 2, there's the 2, plus 5/10, I see that, plus I need my 4 hundredths, okay, which is the missing piece. 51.33, 51 and 33 hundredths is going to be 50 plus 1, those are the whole numbers, plus something, plus 3 hundredths. We just need to put in our 3/10, okay? And that would complete it. So today, when you're doing your work, you're going to practice more of these problems and review it. You're going to go back a little bit and do some of the problems that we hadn't done yet in the workbook. Okay, have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.